I realized that whenever I was looking at myself in the mirror or at my reflection, I didn't recognize myself anymore. And that's when I really started to look into things. Hi honey, it's the Sarah girl and I have a serious question, okay? Have you ever been in a situation where you feel like you are losing yourself? Maybe you said that to yourself and to other people. Maybe the words that you used were, or the question that you asked was, who am I? Now, I had that gnawing and annoying feeling for, I think, at least 2 years. That was and is a very scary feeling for anyone who is maybe still going through something to that effect. And even more so scary because I didn't have the words or the vocabulary to explain to the people around me that wanted to help me. I didn't know how to tell them what this feeling was. That's all I could say. I feel like I'm losing myself, or I just don't know who I am anymore. And when I really decided that, it wasn't something that I could sweep under the rug anymore, was when I noticed that every time I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize myself anymore. Literally did not connect in my eyes and my brain and my very being. Like, I didn't understand that that was me. So that's when I decided, I really need to sort of take a step back. It's an extremely scary feeling because, well, of course, right? If you're looking in a mirror and you don't recognize yourself, that in itself is scary, but even more so because it's isolating. For me, I could not find the vocabulary to explain it to other people around me because those were the only words I could use. I don't know who I am anymore, or I'm losing myself. And it's hard for people who want to help you and for people who love you to help you when they themselves are not very sure or cannot really resonate with what it is that you're going through. I don't have full solutions on how to overcome this problem, but I hope I can give a little bit of vocabulary to what that might feel like and what that might look like when someone says that they don't really know themselves anymore. So let's cut to it. Okay, maybe I can explain a little bit of what it is that I mean when I say I didn't recognize myself in the mirror. Actually, it's exactly as it is. I didn't recognize myself whenever I looked at my own reflection, be it in a mirror or on my camera. I didn't feel like how I felt I looked like was properly being reflected back at me. So let me give you an example, okay? In my case, for 2 solid years, I was very sure that my neck started here. Okay, so if I'm looking at myself in reflection, I was so sure that without having to look at myself in the reflection, that my neck started here. And energetically, that's where my hands would place. Is it, can you put your hands on your neck? And I would do this. But the neck starts here. So there's this big gap in between what is, I guess you would say, reality and what is a felt reality, if you may. So I had that feeling like I had a very, very inflamed throat. The lump in the neck or lump in your throat was a big feeling that kick-started everything for me. That lump for me stayed for a very, very long time, and then it expanded to the rest of my neck. So me feeling that way, that my neck was inflamed and enlarged and engorged, was the way I expected to look. And there was that, I guess, disconnect when I was looking at myself in the mirror. So that was number 1. Of course, I went for all the doctor's appointments. I went for blood tests, appointments, checks, and all these sorts of things. You would think that something around this area would be something to do with the thyroid. Everything, thankfully, came back clear. But I still could not shake this feeling, and nobody could help me with it, that I felt something was very, very wrong in my neck area. And I still couldn't recognize myself when I walked past a mirror. Every time I walked past a mirror, especially if I was alone, I would jump back if I looked at myself in the reflection because it genuinely looked like someone else. So it's kind of scary, so yeah. But clearly something was wrong because I could not shake this feeling of my neck feeling a certain way, but it's not looking like that in my own reflection and to other people. So, it didn't matter who it is that I consulted and stuff like that. Nobody got me. Well, now with some time to think about it, I've had some time to think about it, with some reflection, I feel like once you start to not recognize yourself in the mirror, it's a very clear indicator when you don't have any more self-awareness left in you. So it is basically when I feel you spread yourself way too thin, you've given everything of yourself to everyone around you, every situation around you, whatever it is that you're working on, whatever life is bringing to you, right? You don't know your edges anymore. You don't know where you start and where you end. You've melted basically into the ether. And that's, I don't know, it's not dangerous, I wouldn't say that, but it's not a great way to live, I guess. So you spread yourself too thin, you've given in to other people too much, you're not leading your own truth. Those are some words that I would put to it to maybe better explain what it is that not being able to recognize yourself in the mirror can look like. So the next reason why I could not recognize myself, quite literally, was because I realized I had changed my physical outlook in a way that really contributed to that disconnect for me and sort of raised that bar and made things a little bit worse. So what happens on the outside is not as important, of course, what's happening on the inside, but it is very reflective of what's going on the inside, okay? So I was changing, or I had changed my physical dressing in a way that I genuinely did not recognize anymore. So big disclaimer, I'm not hating on the corporate lifestyle. God knows I was trying to fit in so hard and for so long. I envy people who can fit into this category. We hate being put into boxes, but yes, I liked it. I liked the visual of it. I wanted to be part of it, basically. So I started dressing in a way that, in colors that would make me, I guess, fit in a little bit better in dresses and in clothing, blouses that were from particular brands. You know, I know those sorts of brands that honestly, you know, they're selling their clothes for $120 a piece, but they really should be $20. Made my heart really, really angry, but I really wanted to fit in. That was how deep that feeling was. So I was willing to compromise and just say, hey, you know, if it's working for everyone else and everyone looks great in it, like, why would it not work for me, right? It might make me feel better as well. So in hindsight, I was, well, you know, really trying to dress, accessorize, and I guess the word is perform in a way that would make me look a little bit more mature. This was a very recent realization that I felt like I was not being taken seriously. That everyone felt like Sarah was a very happy-go-lucky person, naive girl who only added like laughter and sunshine to everything. But when it comes to serious things and mature and, you know, things that actually matter, I felt like my voice was not being heard. So I thought physically changing the way that I looked and how I dressed, how I held myself would help with that. You know, nobody said this to me actually. Nobody actually came out and said to me, you know, Sarah, like, can you tone it down? Like, can you not be so loud? Can you just be like one of us? Nobody said this, but these are the things that I felt I needed to do. So no blame on anyone else. No blame on the lifestyle. No blame on that. It's me talking to myself, thinking to myself about how it was that I was being portrayed or portraying myself. My clothing colors were muted most of the time, and people who know me from back in the day, the louder the color of the clothing or the apparel or the accessory, Sarah is the only one wearing it in the room. And that completely changed. The colors I used to wear were things to the effect of orange and gold. So you get the gist. So I had toned down my entire creative expression, the way that I put myself forth in the world. I changed it, and unbeknownst to even me, that was definitely a way that I stopped being able to recognize myself in the mirror because I changed. Further to the dressing point, right, this is a completely different situation. It's not to the effect of me in a corporate lifestyle, but there was a period of time, and I will talk about this in another video, where I started wearing a lot of caps, all sorts of colored caps. And caps are cool. I love caps, but the reason why I was wearing the caps was because I didn't recognize myself, and therefore, if I don't recognize myself, I'm not going to put this face or this person forth to other people when clearly I don't have my shit together, right? So I would use that as a coping mechanism or just a way of being able to hold my head down low. So I would walk around with my cap on, my head down low, and making sure that I was not making eye contact with anyone, that no one could see me, and hopefully I could just cruise by because, you know, This is part and parcel of at least my experience of not being able to recognize myself anymore. So I had a lot of shame walking around. Didn't want anyone to look at me, and I didn't want to look at anyone else either. So it took me a long time of breaking down this losing yourself or losing myself feeling to realize that, in essence, basically I was just not acting in a way that was in integrity with who it is that I am or who it is that I was. Back in the day, when I was going through this, I was doing weird things. For example, I was scolding people. Very, very unlike me. I was scolding them and putting them down like it was my middle name or like it was my job to do it. And I didn't flinch. It's kind of gross. I also started to not be very kind to people. And if I saw someone struggling, for example, at work, I wouldn't help. I wouldn't help in a way that I normally would, at least. Maybe because the way that I had to learn, if, I was made to, go throw you in the deep end and sink or swim, I think that sort of came back to me, and I said, okay, well, everyone's got to learn their own way, so you sink or swim as well. So I'm not going to help you because I felt that nobody was helping me as well. God knows that this is not actually me on a normal day. It's not me on a bad day. No, it's not me to be scolding people, putting people down, or being unkind to people that clearly are struggling to a point where they should be helped. This was happening for me at work and at home in my private life as well. Basically, it boiled down to the fact that I was losing my smile, or I had lost my smile. So what happens when you lose your smile? You lose your joy. You lose your hope. You lose your playfulness. And God knows if there's anything that I can do well, is to fake a smile, even when I don't feel like it. I promise this smile is real. I am genuinely happy. But back in the day, when I knew that I could fake a smile, I could fake it till I make it, I would be able to fake it. Like, you would think that I was genuinely happy. I was at a point where I couldn't even fake it. That's how bad it was. Things that you normally are really good at, you can't do anymore. That's when you know something is really, really, really wrong. So yeah, I lost my smile. Can you believe that? That one is a real deep and very bitter pill to swallow, actually. So this smile is real, completely real, I promise you. I'm not giving this up for anything anymore. And that's my take on, or explanation on, what it is that it might feel like for someone who feels like they're losing themselves and you don't know who you are anymore. You don't recognize yourself in the mirror anymore. And you're just trying to deconstruct that whole feeling. So I'm making this video to hopefully help you and guide you along in trying to ask yourself those questions, those reflective questions on why it is that you in particular might feel like you don't recognize yourself anymore. This is what it looked like to me. It's taken me a long time to get to it, but big learning points. I know what the triggers are and what the red flags are, but yeah, if you guys have any questions, please drop them in the comments, leave a like, and thank you so much for staying till the end of the video. Until next time, honey, take care. I'll see you.